This meeting. There we go, folks. So now that this is being recorded, if you don't want to be recorded, just keep all your camera and stuff off. So friends, you're here because you are junior teachers and you are interested in making co-created long range plans with your students. Or you're interested in seeing the quickest way that I have learned so far to make long range plans. Here is the slide deck in case you'd like to follow along as we go. If you need to leave early, the slide deck has absolutely everything in here that you could possibly need to be able to do what I'm doing. Now, I would like to start with just briefly saying, this is very vague in the Education Act, right? The part of the Education Act that describes duties of a teacher says very, very little about long-range plans. It just says that teachers need to be prepared to provide their principal or SO with plans and outlines, but it doesn't say anything else. So really, long-range plans can look like whatever is suitable to you in your space. Co-planning is something that I do because it's incredibly high yield, right? You build cohesion and consensus. It fosters ownership over academic success. And because co-planning is really a unit of study in and of itself, it gives you achievement data that you can then use for your reporting. Because it combines essential programming, it is essential, because it combines essential program preparation with curriculum delivery, it makes your life easier. So here is a sample B-level report card comment that I will give my students during second term. During second term, let's just say, who do I see here? Oh, hi, Suresh. I'm going to say, Suresh used appropriate science vocabulary. For example, pulleys, gears, potential energy in written and oral conversations with classmates and family to contribute to our co-constructed long-range plan for the second term. I can give this mark in language. I could also magic it into a learning skills comment. Anyway, it's marks for you to plan with your kids. So this is what my long-range planning looks like. I do very, very little stuff by myself. I do a whole pile of stuff together with my class. So this is what my workflow typically looks like. You can either do it across here like this. So it's like 1A, 1 or 2A, 3A, 4A, and then go down to the student work. Or if you don't feel like doing that much prep at one go, you can get this stuff done and then do the activity with your students. Get this stuff done, then do the activity, and so on. So I first start by grabbing a calendar of the school year, noting dates of significance, noting who in my class might be leaving for withdrawal services. I know that withdrawal services are limited, and as we move forward, integrating students, they'll be more and more limited. But if you have students who are deaf and hard of hearing, blind or low vision, they see an OT for occupational therapy, you'll still have withdrawal students in your classes. So I prepare a calendar that I can show my students and their families. Then my students would work with me to add items to the calendar. So their family might also produce submissions as well, because I know that I'm missing stuff, right? My view of myself is it's not my class, it's their class. I'm facilitating their class, but I'm not really the be all end all of my class. It's them. So I need their contribution. So if I move forward one, this is what I would likely generate. So the purple up here, this is all done. This is gone already. We are now into what, the second week of March, so we're here. There's 77, 76, 75, 74 days left of the school year. And I know this because my students count. It's part of my numeracy program. And this red down here, I know that I'm going to do a blackout period for marking. This is the reporting PA day. So I'm not generating marks at all after here. So I was talking to a friend, and they were like, oh my God, I have so much work to do. I'm so stressed out. What do I have left? And I'm like, but we don't really have that much more of the school year. Like, I know it's dragging because they moved the break, but there isn't much left, particularly because of the holidays, the break, the holiday, and then the PA day. So we have 12 instructional weeks until the PA day, the reporting PA day. So after I prepared that calendar, I then would look at the curriculum that I still have to cover. I would also prepare unit titles to put on the calendar. I'll show you what that looks like. Where did it go? Here it is. So I made this with my class. My unit titles are color coded. So I've got science. I have a 4-grade 3-division split, so that's why it looks weird. But I've got science in green. I've got blue, my social studies and geography history. I've got spirit weeks are yellow. This is supposed to be March break. So my students and I co-planned March break with fun activities. And this is my student teachers block. So I'm just assuming that I'm not going to be generating any marks during that period. Any marks that I get are going to be a bonus. And then after the blackout period starts, my kids are going to make memory books, and then we'll co-plan a second spirit week. So I made all these titles and I had them off to the side. And then my students voted and had discussion about what order do we want to put these in. Let me go back to that other slide. There we go. So I prepared unit titles for my students to be able to put on the calendar. Student preference for order of delivery is very important, and their decision making in that is very important because it helps you collect attitudinal data. Like if you've got a whole class that moans and groans when they think about doing, I don't know, rocks and minerals, oh man, right? Then you've got to find some pretty serious hooks to begin that unit, because you know there's going to be resistance, and students who are resistant are going to be less effective at showing you what they understand of your program. Then I'm going to think about assessment and teaching strategies. And I've prepared a list of assessments and teaching strategies that I can potentially use with my class. And then I would want to show them my list of assessment and teaching strategies, because they're going to give me input on what assessment and teaching strategies they would like to have used with them. So let me look down here. Here we go. Here are some assessment strategies. To collect valid data from my students, like to collect different sorts of assessment strategies, at least 3 per unit per student, because if I don't have that, I don't really have enough data to assess them. So selected response, constructed response, performance assessments, and then of course informal assessments. And I likely would discuss some of these with my students and ask them, okay, so for this unit, what might be ways of assessing and evaluating you that I could use? What do you think sounds good to you? Some of them aren't going to be appropriate to all units, but some of them you could use. And then I have teaching strategies, and I'd also want to discuss teaching strategies, right? Explicitly tell my kids how it is I'm going to be teaching them and the strategies that I'm going to use. Making my thinking visual for my students and their families gives them insight into what I want from them, because I'm not making their marks up, right? They're giving them their marks themselves. But if they don't understand the process through which I'm doing it, it sort of invalidates my assessments to a certain extent. So I have them consider modality of instruction. And I know that the learning styles theory has been debunked largely, but still mixing it up and having different modalities helps build student engagement. And we know that. When I was in grade 2, oh hell, I can't remember anything that happened in grade 2, except I remember that my teacher wanted us to bring in chocolate, bars of chocolate and fruit. And we did a chocolate fondue. It was a unit about Switzerland. Oh, the 80s in Ontario. We did a unit about Switzerland, and the fact that she was doing that with us, I remember that. I remember everything about it because it was just so, it's such a palpable thing, right? Now we're a little bit hand-tied and virtual with regard to using sense of smell and sense of taste when we're doing programming with our students, but I've had some success with doing some guided experiments with fruits. So I'll give them a week's worth of time in advance, and then we'll all bring in an apple to class. Had my students all get a miniature pumpkin. I gave them 2 weeks in October. I said, okay, 2 weeks from now, we're doing stuff with pumpkins. You don't need a pumpkin, but if you get a little tiny pumpkin, we'll be able to talk about sink or float activities. We'll be able to talk about the tactile experience of digging into them. And it was a very impactful lesson that they still talk about. I also have examples of how I might engage different modalities. I will use different group sizes with my students. I mean, technological integration is a little bit silly. I made this slide deck to support our brick and mortar colleagues as well. So, I mean, we use a lot more tech integration than this, but here is some. And then in general, things that I use to teach. Incentives are something that I find good success with when I tell the students about it beforehand. If they get to vote on what the incentive would be, I find that they're much more amped up. And with Class Dojo, if I'm using Class Dojo, I typically don't do negative points, and the points will wipe at the end of a discrete period of time, either the length of a unit or a week or whatever, because if you end up with 2 points and somebody in your class has 90,000 points, it doesn't feel so nice. And it would definitely dissuade students from interacting as much as they otherwise would. So after I discuss assessment and teaching strategies with my students, I would then talk about resources. I'd think about, okay, well, what resources do I have around my house? I have a toddler who's obsessed with the skeletal system. I read Dem Bones today because I'm doing body systems as part of my grade 5 science right now. So I'd go around and collect culturally relevant and age and stage appropriate resources. But then I would also ask my students, we've got this unit coming up. This is what the main goal of this unit is going to be. Do you have any things in your house that you might be able to contribute? It feels a little bit like show and tell, but it also then ties items in their own home directly to what they're learning about, to the curriculum. So then the items in their own home become evocative of things that have been discussed in class, which is super, super useful for recall. As I go along, every single one of these 4 steps, I have been this year communicating with families. If you are a weekly newsletter sort of person, you might have these things sent out in a newsletter at the end of each week. You might invite parents to come in virtually to discuss each of these steps. But if you haven't communicated at this point, then I would communicate the long range plans as they look to parents and families. I would co-write an email while sharing my screen with my students. So, okay, kids, we've now finished making a rough long range plan. How are we going to tell our parents? And we'd write that email together. I would show them how to BCC stuff. I would copy and paste the email addresses into the BCC line. And then I would share with the parents why co-planning as a high yield strategy is important and why it's part of our class. And I would also provide families with optional actionables that they could do to support the beginning of the unit. So we have a lot of students every year, but this year more than ever, who have a lot of challenges and maybe find it difficult to have parents connected and really doing stuff to support school because they're focusing on earning enough money to get food and pay rent. So when I say optional actionables, I mean like, oh, we're working on the human body this coming week. You might want to have conversations about organ systems. Talk to your kid about their skin as you're sending them off to have a shower. Talk to them about the importance of brushing their teeth. Why do they need to eat, right? Like have little conversations because they know that the kids are also learning about it in class. After I do this long range planning with my students, I can then go turn it into a unit plan. Unit plans being more discrete pieces are not something that's within the scope of this very, very brief lunch and learn. Now I've skipped a few slides. Right. So this slide is the curriculum upon which I base my units, right? It's all science and social studies. And then I weave in literacy and numeracy throughout. And each of my units also includes the arts. Today I had students doing some drawing using where we're using Padlet and using the drawing tools on Padlet. Some of the skeleton drawings are amazing that I got today. This is a gift from me to you. In the slide deck, if you click on this IEP Expectations folder, if you have students that are IEP'd, all of my students are IEP'd, this will be useful for you. IEP reading, IEP math, IEP writing, media lit, oral, drama, visual art, health, blah, 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 core French, right? I've got by grade things that I put in their IEPs. This is all of my page 3 data. And when I write their IEPs, my long range plans are done because I know what I'm writing, what in what term, right? So in reading, I've gone through all of the curriculum documents, including the new math document, and I've made a mental note of the things that I feel are the most important and things that are on a continuum. So like you want a thing from a lower grade to lead to a thing from an upper grade, scaffolding the students as they go. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say you've got a grade 7 guy who's reading at the grade 3 level. Well, in second term, I would have him predicting the meaning of and quickly solving unfamiliar words using different types of cues and expressing personal thoughts and feelings about what has been read. Those are my reading expectations for his IEP. Done. So I've got also at the bottom of each of these assessment and teaching strategies. I've crossed out ones that I'm not using, but I haven't deleted them from the document because I don't want to lose them. So I've got one of these for every single grade. Some of them have less grades than others, and I update them every single year to make sure that they're still relevant. So you may find that useful in your planning. When I say make titles to put on the calendar, this is what I mean. I just mean like little pieces of word art. So I go insert word art, and then I get these things so fancy. I can change their typeface, right? I use word art a lot for my calendars, because you can make them as big and abrasive as you want. So if I have reminder notes, I make them neon and huge, and then the kids don't typically miss them. Already talked about assessment strategies and teaching strategies. What I would do then with my students is I would show them this slide and I would say, okay, so what do you want to do? And then I would highlight things that they say that they're interested in learning through. Like I sometimes have classes who 0% ever want to work in small groups. They hate it, but they'll super be excited about working in pairs. Bizarre, but okay. That's going to change how I'm going to instruct. So I would do that with both assessment strategies and teaching strategies, because it's going to inform how I unit plan. Now, in the speaker notes of this slide, slide 18, I've shared where to get this from. When I talk about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, having your students reflected in their learning material, the board has some toolkits to help you find resources that will be appropriate for your class. I think these are great. I think these are better when you show them to your kids so that they know why you're choosing certain things. It's really, really important to make your thinking visual for them, because then it helps them connect to their own learning even more. It helps them feel like they are a driver in the car of their academic journey. And empowerment is particularly important during a year when we all feel so very disempowered. Now, I've got a slide page that's got complete long-range plans. Some of these are super over the top. Some of these are really simple. Some of them are very messy. So here's a complicated one. These were my long-range plans from 2019, 2020. Can you tell I had more time on my hands than I do this year? Holy smokes. So I basically put, these are 11 by 17 size pages. I took the board's calendar, I made it weeks, so each page is a month. This was amazing because I could print it on the printer in my school, my brick and mortar school. And then I would have exactly when I was doing what curricular expectation. I did this with my students. So I printed out curricular expectations and then we stuck them all over the chalkboard. Like traditions and celebrations shows up in October because 99% of my kids were desperate to do Halloween. So we did Halloween, Diwali, harvest festivals in general, Thanksgiving. This was a very good month. There was a lot of pumpkin pie and apple spice things. It was amazing. So there's that one. That's over the top. Ain't nobody got time for that this year. This is Angela Berry's. Any of you guys know Angela Berry's? Angela Berry is amazing. So this is an example of her long-range plan, how she plans. She is French. She's teaching a 6, 7, 8 intensive extended French. So this is what her long-range plan looks like. Like, how relaxing is this to look at? Fabulous, Angela, right? And then this is a terrifying, messy one, but this is an example of what I've done with my class. This is just when I had a 5, 6, 7. For a while, I had a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right now, I have a 3, 5, 6, 7. So I just screenshot this, and then my kids voted. When do they want to do this stuff? In what order? And then I use smiley faces to show, okay, how many weeks we have, how many Mondays do we have? Because it was like, this is before we switched to a day cycle. And then we planned out, okay, so where are we going to put all of these units? I got some examples because they were like, I don't know, what are you talking about? Structures, what? Did the same thing for each grade. Right?
Rox, I'm giving you 5-minute notice because I know that you need to leave. So just giving you a heads up.
Thanks, Lauren. That made me jump. Thank you for letting me know. So then I did the same thing for active living. And different, like where health is, what the order in which I'm doing music things. My kids decided to do sex ed during second term, so I'm looking forward to that. What else do I have on here? These are the steps in a nutshell. And then here's some free teachers, pay teachers, long-range plans, long-range planning resources. And then speaking of Angela Berry, she has the best website ever. This will help you out with long-range plans, long-range planning templates, and French things. And that's it. That's everything. So I hope this was useful.
Okay, not sure if you saw the question. Has anyone figured out an easy way to do partner activities or assignments?
Partner activities or assignments. Well, I mean, it depends. It depends what you what your class makeup is like, right? So I find that using things that they can co-work on online is really, really great, really useful. So Google's got some tools.
Okay.
I can send a list of things that I use for pair work, if you would like.
Maybe you can add it as a slide at the
I
end.
will add it as a slide. I'm going to make
Okay.
a note of that.
Next question. How long does it typically take to make these plans with students? Thanks, Megan.
I have found that I can, if I'm going real slow and giving them the time that they need, it will be a full week, one period at a time. So just, I'll do it second period for the entire week. So 5 40-minute periods.
Okay. Looks like we are wrapping up. Not seeing any more questions aside from lots of appreciation. Looks like what you're providing is valuable. Rox, any thoughts on grades or limitations of grades that these tools can be used at? Are we thinking across the K-8, or what are your thoughts?
I have used this effectively from kindergarten to grade 9, which are all the grades that I've taught. Plus, I've done this with student teachers, and they found it very, very helpful.
Question that may or may not be in the chat is, will this be posted on Brightspace across all of LC4 with the recording and the slides?
Gosh, Lauren, I can only hope that you'll help me with that.
I don't see the question there, but someone asked it.
Yeah, let's put it on Brightspace. That sounds
okay.
fabulous.
Once you get the recording.
Okay.
Okay. Always good when a meeting ends 2 minutes early. Maybe we could just come off camera for a quick sec and see each other for just a moment and say thank you to Rox. Here we go. We're alive.
Come on, friends.
And together for just a moment. There we go.
Oh my God, there's faces. Thanks for coming and spending your lunch here, friends. And email me if you're like, I don't know what to, I don't know if your class catches on fire when you try to do this. I'm here. Send me a message. All right, friends, I'm going to go to an IPRC for which I am completely prepared. So I will see all y'all later. Have a
thank you, Rox. So valuable.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rox. Bye.